Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to start with plant kingdom. Technical poll has been launched. Quickly answer me through poll. My audio is clear and my screen is visible. So let's proceed with the lecture. So before we start, let's just take a pre-reading question. And the question says, which of the following algae contains mannitol as a reserve food material? Options are Actocarpus, second is Gracilaria, third is Volvox, fourth is Ulothrix. What do you think? What will be the correct option? Now, I think they're asking about the mannitol. Okay, now let's discuss the question. Question is asking that which of the following algae contains the mannitol as the reserve food material? We know that generally the algae, there are three types. There are green algae, there's brown algae, and there's red algae. Right? Green algae, they have starch as their reserve food material. Brown algae, they have mannitol. And laminarin as their reserve food material. Red algae, they have floridine starch as their reserve food material. Option says that option 1 is Ectocarpus. Ectocarpus is the brown algae. So the correct option is option number 1. I hope it is clear now, Narsing. Second is Glacilaria. Glacilaria is the red algae, and the red algae, they have floridine starch as their reserve food material. Third is Volvox. Fourth is Ulothrix. Volvox and Ulothrix, they all are green algae. Okay, and the green algae, they have starch as their reserve food material. And the question is asking that which algae contains mannitol as their reserve food material. That means they're referring to brown algae. Okay, so the correct option is 1, which is Actocarpus, because Actocarpus is a brown algae. So today we are going to discuss 3 classifications. There's the artificial classification, natural classification, and phylogenetic classification. Okay, so let's start with the first one. But before that, let me tell you what classification is. Classification is the grouping of organisms into certain categories on the basis of their characteristics. Okay, and why we are doing classification? We are doing classification to make the study of the organism easy, because on earth there are millions of organisms are present and you can't study all of them. Okay, so it's easy. So classification, it makes the study of the organism easy. First is the artificial classification. And artificial classification is the earliest classification, is the Asian classification, or you can also say that is a primitive classification. And this classification was based on the superficial morphological characters. Morphological characters are those characters which you can see it from outside, like the shape of the leaf, color of the leaf, number of the leaves. Like these all, like stem, root, these all are the morphological characters. And this classification was based majorly on the vegetative characters. Vegetative characters are leaf, stem, roots. These all are the vegetative structure of the plants. And the reproductive characters are the flower, because they contains androecium and the gynoecium, which are the reproductive part of the plants. Linnaeus, he gave more importance to the androecium characters. Remember this. And this artificial classification, these are followed by Linnaeus and the Aristotle. There are certain drawbacks of this artificial classification. Number one drawback is this, that this classification is based on a very little information, okay, on the very few characteristics. Because it is based on a very little information, the two species which are closely related to each other, okay, they get separated. So this is the first drawback of this classification. Second drawback of this classification is that they give equal weightage to the vegetative and the sexual characteristics of the plant. That means they have given equal weightage to the vegetative structure as well as the reproductive structure of the plant. And we know that the vegetative structures or the vegetative characters, they are more likely to get affected with the change in environment. Okay, for example, in desert you have observed opentia or the cactus, and the cactus, they have they show some kind of adaptation or the modification. The leaves, they are modified into spines. Stems, they are modified into phylloclade. They become flattened and photosynthetic, right? And stem and leaves, what are they? They are the vegetative part of the plants. Okay, so the vegetative characters, they are more likely to get affected by the change in environment. Whereas the reproductive characters, they are conserved. They get less affected by the change in environment, okay? But this classification has given equal weightage to the vegetative as well as sexual characteristics. So this is one of the drawback of this classification. So there are two drawbacks. Number one, they have used little information, because of which the closely related species, they get separated. Second, they give equal weightage to the vegetative and the sexual characteristics. Second classification is the natural classification. And this classification is based on the natural affinity among the organism. Remember this, that it is based on natural affinities. The earlier artificial classification was based on the morphological characters. Remember this. A natural classification system, it also includes the morphological characters because it includes the external features and as well as the internal features. The internal features, it includes anatomy, that is the study at the tissue level. Second is embryology. The logy means study. So embryo, study of embryo. Phytochemistry, phyto means plant. Chemistry is for chemicals. So the chemicals which are present in plant. So this classification has taken two things in consideration. Number one is the external feature, that means the morphology, as well as the internal features, which include anatomy, embryology, phytochemistry. Okay. And this system of classification was proposed by Bentham and Hooker. Remember this. But this system of classification, it also has a drawback, and the drawback that it does not include the phylogenetic relationship. Phylogenetic relationship means the evolutionary history. When we study study about an ancestral history, okay? If the two species, they're having the common ancestor, that means these species, they are closely related and they should be grouped in the, they should be kept in the one group, okay? Next, we are going to discuss is the phylogenetic classification, and this is the most advanced and the most accepted classification. It was proposed, or it was given by Engler and Prandtl. because the system was based on the evolutionary relationship. And we know that for the phylogeny, or to know the evolutionary relationship among the organism, we generally require fossils, right? But what if the fossils are not present? What if the evidences are, or the fossil evidences are not present? Then we can use numerical taxonomy. Numerical taxonomy, in which we assign the codes to the characters. For example, let's say I'm having a species PQRS, right? And let's say I'm having characters stem erect. Erect means straight. Like second character is simple leaf. Let's say third character is 5 stamen. Okay. If this character is present, I will give plus. I will assign the plus code. If this character is absent, I will assign a 0 code. Okay. Let's say the P species is having it's having the stem is erect in P species. So I will assign a code which is plus. If the simple leaf is present, then plus. 5 stamens are present in this species, then plus. If let's say in Q species, the stem is erect, yes. Simple leaf, yes. But stamen is absent, so I've assigned a 0. Okay. So this is how the codes are assigned. Okay. And this numerical taxonomy it uses computer. Here I've taken only 3 characters, but 100 of characters can be taken at one time, like at the same time. And these characters that are given equal importance. So it's a very easiest way. Now you can easily identify like if the species P is having these like all the characters, so it belongs to this group. If the Q is having only this character, so it belongs to this group. So it makes the classification easy. Next one is cytotaxonomy. Cyto means cell. So here the classification, it was required the cytological information like the chromosome number, structure, their behavior. Third one is the chemotaxonomy. We know that there are certain plants which have a certain type of chemical. For example, tobacco, they produce chemical nicotine, right? There are certain plants which produce alkaloids, like poppy plants. They produce an alkaloids like morphine, codeine, right? There are certain plants which produce flavonoids. There are certain plants which produce terpene. What are they? These all are the chemicals and they are present in plants. So these all comes under the chemotaxonomy. They also help in the classification of the plants. Next, we are going to deal with the algae. Algae, they are chlorophyll bearing organism. They have chlorophyll, that means they perform photosynthesis. They perform photosynthesis, that means they are synthesizing their own food. That is why they are autotrophic in nature. Okay. Their plant body is thalloid in nature. Thalloid means that it is not differentiated into leaves, roots, or stem. They are largely aquatic. They can found in both fresh water as well as in marine water. They can also found in other habitats like moist stone, soils, and wood. Like during the rainy season, you have observed the algae over the soil, right? Now, they also shows the symbiotic relationship. If the algae is showing the symbiotic relationship with fungi, then the association is known as lichen. Okay, the algae, because it is photosynthetic in nature, it is autotrophic, so it providing the food to the fungi, and the fungi in return is providing the shelter and also help in the mineral absorption. So in this association, in symbiotic association, both the species, they are getting the benefit. Second one is the algae, they also show symbiotic association with animals, and the example is the sloth bear. You can see in the image. This is a picture of a sloth bear, and this bear is appearing green in color because the algae is present over the surface of the bear. So the beer is providing the shelter to the algae, and the algae in return helping the beer by imparting the green color to the beer, so that this beer can escape from the predator, or the predator they cannot recognize them. Okay, so it is showing a camouflage characteristics. Camouflage, you have seen, is a defense mechanism in the prey. When the prey, they camouflage with the environment, like their structure or their color, they become similar to the background color. Here you can see in the image, the background is green and the beer is also appearing green. Next one is the form and the size of the algae is highly variable. Ranging from colonial, like volvox. Colonial means when the cell, they group and they form a colony in volvox. You have seen this in volvox. Filamentous, when the cell, they are arranged in a series and they form a filament. So it's a filamentous form. This you can see in Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Volvox, Eulothrix, Spirogyra, they all are green algae. The algae, they reproduce by vegetative, asexual, and the sexual methods. By vegetative, it could be by fragmentation. For example, the thallus of the algae, it undergo fragmentation, and each fragment has a tendency to develop into the thallus. So the algae, they can reproduce by vegetative means also. Second, they can reproduce by asexual method also, by the zoospores. And these zoospores, they are motile because they have flagella. Sexual reproduction also takes place through the fusion of two gametes. And the gametes, they could be isogamous, they could be anisogamous. Iso means same, okay? And gamous is for gamete. So the gametes which are similar in size, they are isogamous. But you will observe in case of Eulothrix, the gametes, they are isogamous and flagellated. But in case of Spirogyra, the gametes, they are isogamous, that is similar in size, but they are non-flagellated. Remember this example, these are important, okay? Anisogamous is observed in case of Eudronia. And anisogamous means when the gametes, they are dissimilar in size. Oogamous is observed in case of Volvox and Ficus. And in oogamous, the one gamete is small, which is the male gamete, they're small and motile, and the female gamete, they are large and non-motile. Now we are going to discuss the different uses of algae. We know that the algae, they are photosynthetic in nature, right? They perform photosynthesis. They play a very important role in the ecosystem because at least half of the total carbon dioxide fixation is done by algae. So they play a very important role in ecosystem. We know that the algae, they perform photosynthesis, right? And during the photosynthesis, the oxygen is released. So the area in which the algae is growing, or the water in which the algae is growing, that area or the environment that contains the high level of dissolved oxygen. Porphyra, Laminaria, Sargassum, there are some of the marine algae which can use as a food. So the algae, they can also used as a food. There are certain algae which produce a large amount of hydrocolloids. Hydrocolloids, they are the water holding substance. So the red algae, they produce carrageenan. Brown algae, they produce algin. It's very important point, student. Please remember this. Next one is agar. Agar is obtained from the red algae, especially the Gelidium and Gracilaria. And the agar is a solidifying agent. We generally used agar in the laboratory in tissue culture to grow the microbes. We also used agar in ice creams and in jelly because these are the solidifying, it is a solidifying agent. So we obtain agar generally from the red algae, which is Gelidium and Gracilaria. Next one is Chlorella. Chlorella is a unicellular algae and it is rich in protein. So it is used as a food supplement by the space traveler. Remember this example. Please remember the examples of hydrocolloids, that is algin is produced by brown algae, carrageen is produced by red algae. It's very important. Agar is obtained from Gelidium or Gracilaria. Chlorella, it's a rich in protein, is used as a food supplement by the space travelers. Please remember these 3 points. It's very, very important. Next, we are going to discuss is the green algae. Green algae, they could be unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. Unicellular, like Chlamydomonas. Chlamydomonas is a unicellular green algae. Colonial, like Volvox. Volvox is a colonial algae. Filamentous, like Eulothrix and Spirogyra. They are filamentous in nature. The green algae, they have pigment like chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. And chlorophyll, they help in photosynthesis because they help in the trapping of light energy. These pigments, they are present in chloroplast, and the chloroplast, their shape could be different or their numbers could be different. For example, the chloroplast, there are 1 in case of Chlamydomonas and its number can be like 20 to 40 in case of mesophyll cells. Their shape could be discoid, plate-like, reticulate. Reticulate means network, cup shape, spiral, a ribbon shape. So these are the, and you will observe these different shapes of chloroplasts in different species. And most member of the green algae, they have pyrenoids. Pyrenoids, they are the storage body which stores the protein and starch, and these are present in chloroplast. We know that the reserve food material in case of the green algae is the starch, right? But there are some algae which also has oil droplets. Green algae, they have a rigid cell wall, and the inner layer is of cellulose and the outer is of pactose. They show vegetative reproduction by fragmentation, asexual reproduction by flagellated zoospores, and sexual reproduction could be isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. And you can see in the image, there's a water, and over the water you can see these green. These all are green algae. And why they are appearing green? Because they have the chlorophyll pigment, which is chlorophyll A and the B. Next, we are going to discuss is Phaeophyce, and the Phaeophyce is also known as brown algae. They are found primarily in the marine habitat, and they show great variation in size and form. Remember this point, it's important that they show great variation in size and form. They range from a simple branched filamentous form like ectocarpus to a profusely branched form, which is kelp. Kelp, they are very large, like up to 100 meter in heights. They are very large. Okay, so brown algae, they have kelps. Remember this, okay? It's important. They have chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids, and xanthophyll. Remember these pigments. In green algae, you have seen the pigment is chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, right? But in brown algae, the pigments are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids, and xanthophyll. And the algae is known as brown algae. So the fucoxanthin is present. Fucoxanthin is a xanthin molecule or a xanthin pigment which impart the brown color to the algae. So the Brown algae, they are appearing brown in color because of the presence of fucoxanthin. Remember this. This is an important point. That in brown algae, fucoxanthin is present. The reserve food material in brown algae is laminarian and mannitol. Remember, in green algae, the reserve food material is starch. In brown algae, the reserve food materials are laminarin and mannitol. This is also important. The vegetative cells of brown algae, they have a cellulosic walls, and these cellulosic walls, they are covered by a gelatinous coating of algin. In brown algae, the plant body is divided into three parts. There's a holdfast. It helps in the attachment to the substratum. Second one is stipe, which is a stalk. And third one is the frond. Frond, it is a leaf-like and it helps in the photosynthesis. Remember this point, it's very important that brown algae, only in brown algae you will see holdfast, stipe and frond. Holdfast for the attachment to the substratum. There's a stalk is present, which is a stipe, and the frond is for photosynthetic. It's a photosynthetic organ. It's a leaf-like. Vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction by biflagellated zoospores, and these zoospores, they are pear-shaped. They have two unequal lateral flagella. It's very, very important point. In green algae, the zoospores, they have 2 to 8 flagella. These flagella were equal and they were apical in position in green algae, okay? But in brown algae, the zoospores, they have 2 flagella. The flagella, they are unequal and they're lateral in position. It's a very, very important point, students. Remember this. Sexual reproduction in case of brown algae could be isogamous and isogamous or oogamous. Examples are Actocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum, and Fucus. Examples are very important of all the algae. Remember the examples of green algae, brown algae, red algae. Okay, examples are very important. Next, we are going to discuss is Rhodophyceae, which is a red algae. This algae, it appears red in color because of the presence of a pigment, and that pigment is R-phycoerythrin. Remember this pigment. This is the pigment which is imparting the red color to the algae. Majority of the red algae, they are marine, with the greater concentration found in the warmer areas. And you will see the red algae, they are present on the surface of the water also, and even in the depth in oceans, where very little light penetrates. So they could be found on both the places. On the surface of the water also you can find the red algae, even in the depth of the ocean you will find the red algae. The reserve food material in red algae is floridine starch. Very, very important. In green algae, reserve food material is starch. In brown algae, reserve food material is mannitol and laminarin. In red algae, the reserve food material is floridine starch. And this floridine starch, they're similar in structure to amylopectin and glycogen. We know that the starch is composed of 2 components, right? Can anybody name those components? Please answer me through chat box. So starch, it has amylose and amylopectin. Remember this. Amylose is unbranched. It has alpha-1,4 glycosidic linkage. Amylopectin is branched. It has alpha-1,6 glycosidic linkage. Glycogen is branched. It has both alpha-1,4 and alpha-1,6 glycosidic linkage. Okay, remember these are important points. Okay, so the reserve food material in case of red algae is the floridine starch, and this floridine starch is similar in structure to the amylopectin and glycogen. Vegetative reproduction in the red algae is through fragmentation. And remember one important point, very, very important, that in red algae, the flagella are absent. You have observed flagella in green algae. You have observed flagella in brown algae, right? In green algae, the flagella numbers are 2 to 8. Right? They are 2 to 8 in numbers. In green algae, the flagella, they are equal in size. They are apical in position. In brown algae, there are 2 flagella. They are unequal in size. They are lateral in position. But in red algae, the flagella are absent. Remember this. Very, very important point. Here, the asexual spores are also non-motile. And the sexual gametes, they are also non-motile because the flagella are absent. Sexual reproduction is through oogamous. Remember this very, very important point. In brown algae as well as in green algae, the sexual reproduction is isogamous and isogamous or oogamous. But in red algae, the sexual reproduction is oogamous. Okay, it's very important. Remember this. And the example of red algae are Polysiphonia, Porphyra, Gracilaria, Gelidium. Remember this, that Gracilaria and Gelidium, from Gracilaria and Gelidium, we obtain agar. You see this? Can you see this white color powder? This is agar. And these are the jellies which are made from this agar, because agar is it acts as a solidifying agent. Okay, you can warm the water. If you add the agar to it, agar get dissolved, and after some time you will observe that it solidifies like a jelly. This table is given in NCERT and it's very, very important because it summarizes all the important characteristics of the green algae, brown algae, and the red algae. So commonly, chlorophyce is known as green algae, pheophyce is known as brown algae, rhodophyce is known as red algae. The major pigment in chlorophyce or the green algae are chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, because of which the algae is appearing green in color. Brown algae, they have chlorophyll A and C and fucoxanthin. Because of the presence of fucoxanthin, the brown algae is appearing brown in color. Red algae, they have chlorophyll A and D and phycoerythrin. Because of the presence of phycoerythrin, the red algae is appearing red in color. Green algae, they have starch as their reserve food material. Brown algae, they have mannitol and lamarin as their reserve food material. Red algae, they have floridine starch as their reserve food material. It's important, okay? Remember these. Cell wall. In green algae, they have cellulose. In brown algae, cellulose. And on the surface of the cellulose, there's a gelatinous coating is present, which is of algin in case of brown algae. In red algae, there's the cell wall, they have cellulose, pectin, and polysulfate ester. Now the flagella, lumbar, and their position. In green algae, the flagella are 2 to 8. They are equal. They are apical in position. In brown algae, the flagella are 2 in number. They are unequal. They are lateral in position. In brown algae, the flagella are 2. They are unequal in number and they're lateral in position. In red algae, the flagella are absent. Important point. Remember this. Green algae, the habitat are fresh water, brackish water, salt water. Brown algae, the habitat are fresh water, rare, brackish water, salt water. In red algae, the habitat is fresh water, brackish water, and salt water. There's some more important points. Remember that the brown algae, it produces algin. Red algae, it produces carrageen. In red algae, the sexual reproduction is oogamous. In red algae, the flagella are absent. Brown algae, they show great variation in size and form. Green algae, they have pyrenoids, which are the storage body which stores starch and protein in, and they are present in chloroplast. Kelps, they are the brown algae and they're very highly branched and they can reach up to the height of 100 meters. They are very large. You will see in the oceans. Okay, they are highly branched. They are the brown algae. Right now, I don't have the image of the kelp, but I'll make sure in the next class I'll show you the image of kelp. Okay, they are highly branched. You can see they are very long in height. Like they can reach up to 100 meters. Next time I'll show you the image of kelp, then it will become more clear to you. Okay. So these are the important points which I have discussed regarding the algae. Please remember these important points and the point which I have told you that it's very important. Okay. Please remember those points. They're very important from the exam point of view. Okay, now let's take the question. The question says, which of the following algae produce carrageen? Option 1 is green algae. Option 2 is brown algae. Option 3 is red algae. And option 4 is blue-green algae. Quickly answer what you think, what will be the correct option. Very good, Narsing. Student, they're asking like which of the algae produce carrageen. Okay. Some of you have answered A, some of you have answered C. That means some of you have answered green algae and some of you have answered red algae. 50-50%. But the question is asking which of the algae produce carrageen. I've just told you. Carrageen, they are the hydrocolloid substance. Hydrocolloids are those substances which are water holding substance, okay? And there are two types of hydrocolloids. There are algin and second one is carrageen. Algin is produced by brown algae. And carrageen is produced by red algae. I told you it's very, very important point. Algin is produced by the brown algae, carrageen is produced by the red algae. Okay, so, and the question is asking which of the algae produces carrageen. So the correct option is 3, which is the red algae. Red algae produces the carrageen. Okay, and the carrageen, they are the hydrocolloid substance. Hydrocolloids are those which are water holding substance. And the blue-green algae, they are cyanobacteria. Okay, these blue-green algae, there's another name of blue-green algae, cyanobacteria. These are the, for example, nostoc and anabena. These are the example of cyanobacteria. They are known as a blue-green algae. They are also photosynthetic in nature. They also have chlorophyll A. Okay, but here the name is bacteria, and the bacteria, they are prokaryotic in nature. So cyanobacteria, they are prokaryotic. They belong to a kingdom Monera. Okay, and the green algae, brown algae, red algae, they are eukaryotic. They belong to plant kingdom. I hope it is clear to everyone. So today we have discussed the classification, artificial classification, natural classification, phylogenetic classification, general features of algae, green algae, brown algae, red algae, okay? So today we have discussed all these points. Tomorrow we are going to discuss bryophytes and pteridophytes, okay? So thank you all for your participation. I hope this lecture was interesting and informative for you. Thank you all and see you in the next class. Have a nice day, everyone.